This is the formula sheet that you are going to have available for you for the test. You do not need to memorize formulas, but you do need to recognize who's who. Remember, this is the area of a rectangle. The second one is the area of a triangle because it's 1/2 of the base times height, where the height is this distance here, up to down. And then the base is the distance from left to right. You do not need to worry about this one. This is area of a trapezoid. The second one is the area of a circle, or I'm sorry, the third one. And the fourth one is so this is area, that's on the inside, is circumference or perimeter of a circle. It's the distance around the circle. So going all the way around. Remember that in a circle, the diameter is the area that the length from one end to the other, and the radius is half of a diameter. So the radius would be the blue and the diameter would be the red if you were looking at it a little differently. So you are going to have a question where you're going to have the area of a rectangle and 2 half circles. So that's really 1 full circle and the area of a rectangle, and together you add them up and that's your final area. Remember that the area of a circle is pi r squared. You have to do r squared first and then times 3.14. Then times r squared. That's going to give you the area of the full circle. Then you do base times height to get the area of the full rectangle, and together you add it, and that's your final area of the shape that is made up of a circle and a rectangle. On the test, numbers 1 through 13 are solving equations. And numbers 14 through 20 are area, perimeter, and circumference. There are 13 questions that are like the solving equations. This unit is actually required before you even begin Algebra 1. We will be tested on this unit all year. And if you have not mastered this solving equations by the end of the year, you may have to repeat pre-algebra because this is the most important part of pre-algebra. So I would like to look at number 12 right now on your study guide. Number 12 says 4x plus 3 times 3x minus 2 is equal to 33. Remember that when you're solving equations, you're trying to find out what the x is equal to. You are separating the x's from the numbers. You want the final answer to be x is equal to, and then some number. And in order to do that, hopefully you remember that whenever there is a number in front of the parentheses, you've got to distribute. In this expression on the left-hand side, I'm not distributing the 4x, I'm distributing the 3 because the 3 is the one that's right in front of the parentheses. So you need to rewrite that 4x because it didn't go anywhere. Plus 3 times 3x is 9x, and 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Please remember that you have to multiply the 3 to everybody inside of that parentheses, not just to the first one. Then you rewrite the 33 equals 33. So if you wanted to have a first step, you could say that distribute is the very first step. The next step is to combine like terms. So on the left-hand side, I notice that 4x and 9x are like terms. Like terms. These are like terms, and they combine to give you 13x. You rewrite the minus 6 is equal to 33. So the third step could be rewrite. We just rewrote the negative 6 and the 33. Now you have to solve. That means it's a two-step equation. You want only x's on the left or on the right. You want to separate them. The minus 6 needs to be relocated. So in order to get rid of that, I am going to add 6 to both sides because that's the only way to get rid of a negative 6. You rewrite again. Notice that you always rewrite what doesn't change. So you rewrite the 13x. Those cancel out, which was your whole goal, is to cancel that out. And 33 plus 6 is 39. Now, if 13 is being multiplied to x, how do I get x alone? You divide. So I am going to divide by 13 on both sides. That leaves my x by itself, which is what I wanted. And 39 divided by 13 is 3. X is equal to 3. So if you want steps, think of it as DCRS. Distribute, combine, rewrite, and solve. Where the rewriting is constant. You always rewrite what doesn't change. Number 13 also. So these are the hardest questions of solving equations. If you could do 12 and 13, you could do them all. Number 13 is 3x minus 5, parentheses 2x plus 3 is equal to 20. So one more time, our steps, distribute. That's my first step. Always take the sign in front. You are distributing negative 5. So I'm going to rewrite 3x. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. Don't forget, you're distributing the negative 5 to that positive 3. What is negative 5 times positive 3?
Negative 15.
Negative 15. Rewrite equals 20. Maybe you want to separate both sides of the equal sign. Step 2, combine like terms. 3x and negative 10x combine to give you negative 7x. We always rewrite what doesn't change, so I'm going to rewrite that minus 15 and I'm going to rewrite that 20. And the last step is to solve. That means we're going to get rid of everything that's on the wrong side. You could either move all the letters to the left, to the right, and numbers to the left, or I would recommend, until this becomes much more second nature for you, I would recommend you always bring the x's to the left and the numbers to the right, or you isolate them. Very good. So, if I'm going to remove that minus 15, I'm going to plus it to both sides. Again, you're going to rewrite because rewriting is constant. Negative 7x is equal to 35. You divide by
7.
negative 7. Always take the sign in front.
And you get negative 5.
And you get x is equal to negative 5. Excellent. Number 20 is definitely a question that we need to make sure we understand. It's another perimeter and area. And it looks like this. And the measurements that you have, first of all, the question says, find the total area in square meters. So check that out. It's actually giving you what unit to use for area. So it tells you that this distance is 3 meters. It tells you this one is 6. It gives you the distance of this whole thing as 15. The height of this little part is 4. It also gives you this distance as 5 and this distance as 4. If I'm asking you for the area, it means that I am looking for the area of this rectangle plus this rectangle plus this rectangle. And I have my dimensions here, so I recommend that you break it down into different pieces. Let's start with this rectangle here. That rectangle, if I look at it, measures 3 by 6. this rectangle here is going to require that you do a little bit of like manipulation. You have to think about what the other dimensions are. So, looking at this rectangle, if I know that the distance from here all the way down here is 15, if this distance is 15, I also know that this part is 3. So if this part here is 3, what does that mean this part here is? 12. So that rectangle here is really 12 high. And then looking back at our original here, this is 4, but this whole part is 6. So that means that this part has to be 2. So this part is 2, and the height is 12. Now I have to find the dimensions of this rectangle down here. Well, it's easy to see that the height is 4 because that's what it tells me. But now I need to try to figure out this length. I know this part is 2 plus that 5 means this whole distance is 7. Now I have the dimensions of all of my rectangles, and to get the area of everything together, I'm going to do the area of this one, which is 3 times 6, which is 18. The second one is 2 times 12, which is 24. And the third one is 7 times 4, which is 28. The area of all three together is 18 plus 24 plus 28, which gives you 70. And my units, as they reminded me, are square units. So the area of the whole figure is 70 square meters. So this question is asking you for 2 parts. It's asking you to find the perimeter rounding to the nearest tenth. That's the first digit after the decimal. And then it says find the area rounded to the nearest tenth. On the test, I also have this great big statement that says, remember units. That means that if it is area, we will always use square unit. And if it's perimeter or circumference, you will just use regular units. Okay, so I even give you that hint. Remember to use your units. If it is area, it's going to be square units. Bless you. And if it is perimeter or circumference, it's regular units.
So for area, you could like do the...
Look at the first one. The first one's asking me to find the perimeter. If you recall, when I'm finding the perimeter or area of a composite shape, in other words, a shape that's made up of more than one, your job is to find the distance around. So you want this, which is 10. So I know it's 10 plus this distance, which I don't know. I don't know what this is. Plus this distance, which I know is also 10. Plus, so this is what I don't know, that red part. This distance here, which I don't know. Your job is to find that unknown. That unknown, if you recall, is actually, looking at it, it is one of the half a circles here and one of the half a circles here. And because there are 2 halves, that makes up what? One whole. So you really want to know the circumference or the distance around that whole circle. You don't have to worry about dividing it by 2 because you have a whole circle. Your job is to find that circumference. Now, going back to the formula sheet, we know that circumference is equal to diameter multiplied by pi. It's also known as 2 pi r, which is the same, it's the same formula. It's 2 radius.
Wait, what's the diameter?
When we're looking at a circle, as a quick refresher, if this is a circle, the diameter is the distance from one end to the other. It's that full distance. The radius is from the center out. So a radius is really half of a diameter. Looking at this picture, what is the 7 telling me it is of the circle? This distance is the diameter of that whole circle. That means that the circumference, which is the distance around that whole circle, so one more time, this distance plus this distance together is the distance of the whole circle around, and that is called the circumference. If the diameter is 7 and pi is really 3.14, 7 times 3.14, and you are going to have a calculator for area and perimeter. 7 times 3.14 gives you 21.98. What is 21.98? The distance around the whole circle. In other words, the circumference, correct?
Yes.
So this part, this red part, plus this red part together added up to 21.98. That means that I am going to add up 10 plus 10, because that's what this part here is. 10 plus 10, and this together is 21.98. So really I'm adding the 20 plus 21.98. That gives me 41.98. If I'm asked to round to the nearest tenth, it's the first decimal place. Looking at the 8, it would tell the 9 to go up by 1. That means that 41.98
42.
would round up to 42. And my units are centimeters because it's not area. That is the perimeter. That is the perimeter. So now that I know that the perimeter is 42 centimeters, I can work on the second part, which is the area. So the perimeter is 42 centimeters. The area, similarly, is made up of the area of the rectangle plus the area of the circle. So the area of the rectangle plus the area of a full circle. Because if you think about it again, this is half a circle, and this is half a circle. So together, I am going to make or find the area of a full circle. So the area of the full figure is the area of this half a circle plus this full rectangle. Area is the space on the inside like a carpet. How do I get the area of a rectangle?
Length times width.
Great. This is 10, and this is 7. So the area of the rectangle is 70 square centimeters, because area has square units. Do you remember what the formula of the area of a circle is?
Is area equals to pi times radius and the cube on top.
Correct. Pi times the radius squared. You won't have to memorize that. I'm going to give you those formulas, and you're going to choose. So area is pi times the radius squared. This is telling you that, just like PEMDAS says you have to do exponents first, you have to square the radius. That means, basically, that you're multiplying the radius times itself. And then you multiply that by pi. and pi is really 3.14. So this pi r squared tells you find the radius, multiply it by itself, then multiply it by pi. That's what the formula of the area of a circle is. I know that this distance here is 7. So this distance is 7.
Or 3.5.
The full diameter is 7. So the radius is half of that, which is 3.5. And again, you have a calculator. You could do 7 divided by 2. The radius is 3.5. If the radius is 3.5, and I go to plug it into my formula, the area is going to be, I'm going to rewrite 3.14 instead of pi. I'll move it up so we can see it a little bit better. And the radius is 3.5, but I have to square 3.5. So remember, you do exponents first. So your job is to do 3.5 times 3.5. That gives you, so r squared is 12.25 times pi. And when I multiply 12.25 times pi, it gives me, and the 12 is kind of out of there, 38.465. That is the area of the circle.
You have to add
And now, exactly, you're going to add the area of the rectangle plus the area of the circle. So 70 plus 38.465 is going to give you 108.465. Rounded to the nearest tenth means you look at the 4. The 6 is more than 5, so it tells the 4 to go up to 5. So 108.5, and its area, so it's square centimeters. You could either write centimeters squared or square centimeters, whichever one you would like. It means the same. So 108.5 square centimeters is the area of that whole figure. Okay, so I updated this here. It should be 1.4. It was 3.14. It's just that when I was writing it, I sort of was speaking and I wrote without the 1, but it was still there. Number 19, you have a triangle, and it gives you the measurements 5 centimeters and 2 centimeters. It asks you for the area. The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, or simply just the base times height divided by 2. It's just like a rectangle, but it's half of a rectangle. Every triangle is half of a rectangle. The base is 5. The height is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And 1/2 of 10 is 5. So the area is 5 square centimeters because area always has square units. Number 16, you do not have to worry about on the study guide because that's not on the test. But if we review number 14, you will have a question like that one. This one's pretty easy, I would hope, you think. It just wants to know the perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around. So this is number 14. Perimeter is what you would use if you were trying to put maybe like a fence around the perimeter. And remember that area is like carpet. It's how much carpet or how much tile you're trying to put down on the inside. And you'll notice that there is a question like that on the test. It asks you. It's going to ask you, when would you use area? When would you use perimeter? Okay, so area is the carpet inside, the tile, the area on the inside, and perimeter would be the fence around. So if I'm asking you to find the perimeter of this figure,
you just add all
you only simply add up all the sides. So you would say 22 plus 36 plus 53 plus 20, 132, and perimeter uses regular units, meter, not square meters. Perimeter is regular units, area is square units. Area, if you did the area, you would break it down into two shapes. You would break it down into 20 by 22 rectangle, and then the triangle would be 20. If this whole thing is 53 and that's 22, this would be 31, and then you would get the area of each and add it. But you're not going to have a question like that. So one more time, if you were to do the area, you would do the area of this rectangle, which is 22 by 20, and add it to the area of the triangle. And the triangle's height is 20, because that's the same as this. And the base of that triangle, this part right here, is going to be, if this distance is 22, that means this is 22. So this is the difference between 53 and 22, which is 31. And then you would do base times height divided by 2.